Okay, so I'm with Dan Watkins, Conservative candidate for the Tooting constituency, by-election coming. Dan, I guess my first question for you would have to be, why on earth do you want to be an MP?
It's a good question, and not the first to ask it of me. But I suppose I've always been very civic. I had a good education, local state schools down in Kingston,
Right.
and I always thought I need to put something back because I felt quite fortunate in that. As I started off as an entrepreneur, started my business actually in Earlsfield, creating jobs, and that was great. But then I started getting involved with the community, volunteering, and having now lived in Tooting for the last 15 years, I've seen that there's so much can be done to improve the area, and I've developed contacts across all the different community groups, faith groups, businesses, young families, pensioners. I know all the different groups doing their good stuff in Tooting, and I've got a real vision for how we can improve it. My 6-point plan, as I'm calling it, and I really want to action that. I know it will help everyone in the community, no matter what their background.
Okay, and it is quite a diverse community, isn't it? I guess like any constituency. But one that's obviously of concern for people around where I live is what's happening with Crossrail 2. And there must surely be advantages to this, but obviously there are concerns. My sense is that you've just tried to give people the facts about it up to now, but where do you see it going from here?
So I think Crossrail 2 is like the biggest issue that will hit our constituency in the next 4 years up to the 2020 election, and that's because it's going to go through Parliament in the next 2 years, and we need a really strong voice in Parliament, a great MP who's going to be able to guide that through and make sure it works. So I absolutely think it has to come to our area. The Northern Line is packed. We need an extra transport capacity. So we need to make sure it happens. So I want to be the MP in Parliament, making sure it gets the funding, because it will need some subsidy from central government for sure. And secondly, it's about making sure it's implemented correctly in our area. And as you say, I've been at the forefront of the campaign for the last couple of years. First time round, getting the access shafts moved off Wandsworth Common and Trinity Fields onto some brownfield land. And then since Transport for London have been talking about moving the station to Balham from Tooting Broadway, really speaking to constituents, had 3,000 local residents responded to my survey, and we saw the overwhelming response was to keep it in Tooting. So really making the case for Tooting, but not being closed-minded. If when they do these further studies that they've now given us, because we've made such a strong case for Tooting, and Transport for London are doing these extra studies on Tooting and Balham, if they come back and it really is impossible for building it in Tooting, we've got to be cognizant of that and react accordingly. But in principle, I want to see it in Tooting. And again, I'm the guy who've worked on the campaign for the last 2 years. I can really make sure that we present the best possible case.
And that's so the issues there was that initially there was apparently the surveys were saying that Tooting wasn't suitable for it. There would be too much work would have to be done in order to site the station in Tooting rather than in Balham. And you've asked them to kind of have another look and give more evidence for that decision?
Yeah, and do additional studies.
Right.
And they've agreed themselves that given the community very much wants it in Tooting Broadway, then let's do that. And the case is strong. I mean, there's much more opportunity for regeneration in Tooting Broadway versus Balham. You only have to look at Tooting Broadway and you can see there's more chance of more jobs, more housing, which we desperately need. It will give wheelchair access from the tube. This new Crossrail line will go straight up to St George's.
Right.
At the moment, you can't do that. There is no
so it's
lift.
difficult to get to that hospital.
So that would be fantastic. There's 8,000 people working there, all the patients, all the visitors. That'll make a big difference. And it's also going to have a big impact actually on our high street. So that's why it's a big issue. Almost all aspects of kind of life in our area are going to be impacted by Crossrail 2, and we've got to get the decision right.
Okay. So before my battery dies and before we have to let you go, I guess the other issue that's going to be topical for many people now is the referendum that's coming. So where do you stand on whether we should Remain or Brexit, and why?
Yeah, so I had to give it a lot of thought. I've always been a little bit cautious about the European Union. It struggles to, let's say, administer itself very efficiently, and it can't even sign off its accounts, and that really grates with me. At the same time, I recognise it's very important as Londoners for trade, the singles market, for jobs, and ultimately, having given it a lot of thought, I think it is best that we remain in. It'll certainly make the next few years a lot easier. Long term, I can see that in or out. I think Britain's got a great history as a nation that overcomes challenges, and I have an optimistic view either way. But I think in the short term, that's what guides me. I don't want to see 2 or 3 years of job losses and all the grief that unemployment brings. So I'm going to be voting Remain on 23rd of June.
Very good. And so, any final messages for anyone who might be watching this?
I just look, I'm the local candidate. I've run a huge number of campaigns. It's almost like for the last 3 years you've had like a job interview with Dan Watkins that's lasted that long. I'm getting good response on the doorstep. I think people know that I'll do a great job for them in the community, and I really hope people can go out and vote for me on 16th of June. Make me the next MP for Tooting.
And it's going to be close as well, isn't it? So it's absolutely worth it if people are inclined to do it, to make sure they do get out and vote.
Absolutely, it really is going to be
Could
close.
be down to the hundreds.
So could be down to the hundreds. Yeah. So please do cast your vote on Thursday, 16th of June.
Good. Okay, thanks very much, Dan.